AllisonWinePromo.com. You can get 50% off my favorite Malbecs, 50% off shipping, and you don't even have to leave the comforts of your video game that you're playing right now. It might not help your ability to win whatever video game you're playing, but maybe that'll push you to get a real job, do something else. Not trying to come down on video gamers, okay? But I am just saying that you can check out some AllisonWinePromo.com. Extreme altitude wines between 6,000 and 9,000 feet, very remote regions of Argentina. You could die trying to get these wines. Why do that when they're coming to you in a great opportunity to support the work as well? Bonner Wine is an amazing sponsor of mine. They've been with me since the beginning, through getting fired, through getting suspended by YouTube, all this stuff. They never tell me who I can talk to, what I can say. They've just stuck with me. And all of you who are also fans of Allison Wine Promo, you have kept them going. They're a great sponsor. Go check them out. If you're already a wine drinker, you have no excuse. Okay, let's go to your letter then. So all right, so summing up that video, basically, all those journalists that were invited to the First Amendment Awards, where Jen Psaki was the MC, which somebody also said, I thought it was really funny. They said, will Alec Baldwin be hosting the gun safety awards next?
Why not? I mean, it's like having it's a weird analogy, at a sheriff's conference, a sheriff's association meeting, right? Having, some serial killer come talk, it's just almost as egregious, at least to me, someone who spent, his whole life in journalism.
Okay. So this is a just quick few sentences. Mike and another news director co-signed a letter to RTDNA RTN. It's DNA, right? Is it NTDNA?
RTDNA. Yeah, they added digital.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you all write, I hope we all agree the First Amendment to our Constitution is without question the most important. Perhaps it's why our founders placed it first in the Bill of Rights. Yet the RTDNA Foundation says it is thrilled to announce that Jen Psaki will be Master of Ceremonies for the 33rd Annual First Amendment Awards on March 9th. What? One would have to assume that every member of RTDNA would follow the news as former presidential press secretary Jen Psaki presided over an unprecedented campaign to censor contrarian views and reporting by traditional and independent journalists. Her disdain for the First Amendment was not well hidden. And then scrolling down to the end, you mentioned that you used to be members of the organization. It's an organization that hosts one of the most well-respected journalism award ceremonies, which is the Murrow Awards. And you write, what happened to pursuing unfettered journalism and speaking truth to power? Jen Psaki is not a First Amendment advocate. She was the power who advocated for aggressive censorship. Didn't we all endeavor to champion accurate, objective, and balanced coverage as the nation's news directors? We can only hope we were not the only ones. So I guess my first question going into this letter, and then we'll read the response you got back from the organization's mouthpiece. What was your hope in sending that? Did you think that they were going to pay attention and change things? Were you just, I want to just make sure I'm not silent about this? What was your main goal?
I think it was the last, I didn't expect to have any huge impact. I think the reaction, and I sent the letter to as many people at RTDNA that I could find their email addresses for, because they don't publish their phone numbers or email addresses for anyone. And a number of board members, and I only got one response from one person I knew who said, hey, Mike, I respect you, but we're going to stand, let Dan Shelley answer this, which I understand his point. But it was fundamentally silence. I mean, no one said, Mike, you're right. We should reconsider this. Good points. You'll see what Dan responded, but I just thought I would throw it out there and just see. Somebody had to stand up and say something. If it starts with me, and I know the reaction would be, who's this crazy guy, former news director? Who's this Mike Rausch guy? What's he about? Who knows anything about him? And I thought that would be the first reaction. I didn't think the first reaction would be, hey, that guy who used to be in our business for decades, he's got a point. And maybe we ought to step up and do a little self-reflection and refocus our efforts as an organization. But I don't know that that's happening, maybe at a small level, but Dave Goldberg and I, former news director, Dave, news director in many markets, I was news director in many markets. We just thought we would just throw it out there and see if we might have some impact as small as I think we probably are being viewed.
All right, well, let's go look at their response. This is from Dave Shelley, right? He's the president of RTDNA. Mike and
Dan,
Dave.
Dan Shelley, yeah.
Dan Shelley, sorry.
Yeah.
Dan Shelley. Mike and Dave, thank you for taking the time and having the concern to reach out to us about our foundation's First Amendment Awards Gala Saturday night. The RTDNA Foundation engaged Jen Psaki as the MC for the 2024 First Amendment Awards as a result of her experience and distinct perspective on the role of journalism in American democracy. And says, as one of the highest profile media personalities at one of our country's largest media networks, Jen understands the importance of tone and perspective. And while her past experience and ideological viewpoints may not be in alignment with everyone or even all of the attendees at the event, we respect her voice and experience, and we're confident she would set an appropriate tone for the evening, which included one of celebration and respect for all our honorees. Indeed, she delivered on that score. While the First Amendment Awards focus primarily on journalism, they have had a long history of recognizing individuals from within the political realm and from both sides of the aisle, and we appreciated having an MC with a diverse perspective and background. They're looking at it like, basically, you are pointing out that she has just a different political viewpoint. You just don't like her political viewpoint. What you were trying to say is, no, she was actively suppressing speech. She was part of an administration that was actually suppressing diverse viewpoints, not that you don't like her perspective on that. But that's my read, that he took it like you just didn't like her politics, which is not what you were saying.
Well, he's also saying, we just have to agree to disagree, right? And in, in my follow-up to him, I pointed out, as a reporter, on the street, you used to hear, hey, you go to a police incident, and hey, nothing to see here, move along. And I think that was his main thing. I just want to distract Mike here, he and Dave, and, we'll just, really not acknowledge their point of view because we're going to do what we're going to do. And it's not a serious thing what he's saying. And I think it's a very serious thing what we were saying. There's also Mark Hyman, who works for Sinclair in Washington. He wrote a Substack on this. I don't know if you could pull that up. It's a graphic I sent with
Got it.
Shelley. If you want to pull it up.
Well, I pulled up his article.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, the graphic.
Pull up the quote?
I've got the quote here.
Okay.
I don't know if you have it right in front of you. I can just read what he said. Anyway,
yeah, go ahead. I'll pull that up. Give me 1 second. But this is the article, just so give him a shout out. It's markhyman.substack.com, where you can read it. Jen Psaki, model of First Amendment hostility, honored by News Association. Go ahead, Mike, and I'll pull the other quote up.
Right. And when I saw his Substack, I'm going like, hey, I'm not crazy. I'm not, you and I and Dave, we're not the only ones. But his quote, because he called Dan Shelley and talked to him, and I'm sure Dan's a nice guy. And in his Substack article, he said this: Shelley claimed that although RTDNA supported the First Amendment, it was important we work together to stop disinformation because it is so dangerous. So Shelley's saying stopping disinformation is important because it's so dangerous. But he doesn't see the dangerous world he's walking down here when you're talking about, okay, where does that begin? When does it end? He said Shelley told him, it's his quote, Shelley didn't believe censoring disinformation was incompatible with supporting the First Amendment. One more time. Shelley didn't believe censoring disinformation was incompatible with supporting the First Amendment. What? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
What are you? I mean, it's just anybody who's a journalist. You spent your whole life, and Dan's been around a long time, and a lot of people on the RTDNA board. They're solid journalists. They're good people. They're out there working. But how could anybody read that and say, hey, maybe the leadership of this organization isn't really in sync with the concept of what we really should be about, what we should be talking about, and what we should be championing? Shouldn't an organization, a journalism organization, and there are many, and we could talk about what Matt Taibbi said about this too, they should all be championing the First Amendment and standing by legally where needed, and funding the effort to protect the First Amendment wherever, with independent journalists, whoever, with, doctors who are speaking up on COVID, right? Most of them proven to be right, but they were being censored, along the way. So you got Matt Taibbi here. So Matt, was kind of the mastermind of the Twitter files, he and Michael Schellenberger. And the interesting thing about Matt was, and you've had him on, you've interviewed him, is that he was shocked at how he stood alone when he was talking about this censorship effort that the administration was imposing on tech companies that they saw through the Twitter files, where all of that information was finally released, where all this correspondence was going back and forth. And it wasn't passive. I mean, it was aggressive and pushing Twitter to censor multiple topics, not just the COVID issue, you know, the Hunter Biden case, obviously well known, and many others. So it expanded beyond that as journalism organizations stood silent. And Matt Taibbi's like, I'm standing out here in the rain by myself, and where is everybody else? And here's a quote that he, you know, talked about what he found. And if you read this as a journalist, you got to think, oh my God, what's going on with our government and who we are? He says the files show the FBI acting as doorman to a vast program of social media surveillance and censorship, encompassing agencies across the federal government, from the State Department to the Pentagon to the CIA. So it was very broad. It wasn't just the White House, right? It was the entire base world of government operating in this way. It says he went on to say the operation is far bigger than reported. Twitter had so much contact with so many agencies that executives lost track. Now, shouldn't that strike fear in the heart of every journalist? When I read it, I'm going like, you got to be kidding me. But crickets, silence, no organization talking about it. And I guarantee you at this RTDNA First Amendment Awards dinner, this wasn't mentioned at all. I guarantee it didn't come up. So that's what Dave and I, why we thought we would send this letter and see if we could just shake the tree a little bit and at least get these organizations to start thinking about it. I don't have any illusions that, you know, there's going to be some big impact and it's going to ripple across the universe, you know, what we said. But, you know, everybody needs to speak up. Why is everyone afraid to speak up? Why were all these news directors at that dinner afraid to speak up? Why were all the members of the board of directors afraid to speak up? Why were the directors at large, one I know very well, why did that person not speak up? I mean, it's just bizarre to me that we're in this go along, get along, and let's pretend that nothing bad is happening to the very core of the First Amendment and journalism as connected.
Okay, and here we have a picture. This is Jen Psaki. Again, did she give him a First Amendment award with
Right.
Mark Hyman?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
For what was it? What did they?
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
Well, Jamie Raskin got the award for.
Jamie Raskin, right? Sorry, my bad.
Yeah. He was sponsor of the Press Act that's supposed to protect the media from being spied on. Well, okay, is anybody protecting the media from being spied on by those agencies we don't even know exist, and big tech? You know,
it's protecting their right to spy on us.
I don't know what
protecting their monopoly on spying, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, when he, you know, it did pass the House in a unanimous vote, so everybody seemed to be on board with the concept, except maybe the media is not on board with the concept of supporting, you know, or doing their job, right? Okay, yeah, protect us, but they need to protect everybody when it comes to the First Amendment, not just themselves.
You go to TeleRx, one of my new sponsors. They're a medical freedom online pharmacy that's arisen, but one that doesn't take any of your personal data. You don't have to submit pictures of yourself or any personal information or anything. Basically, you consent to understanding what you're getting. Like me, I got an EpiPen, 50% off, by the way. They're direct to consumer, so it's a lot cheaper. They purport themselves to be one of the pharmacies that has arisen during a time of an attack on medical freedom, frankly, that isn't going to bow to pressure from the government or hospital groups or pharmaceutical companies. And so you have a wide variety of options as an informed consumer. You guys know I'm a proponent really of natural health. Like I'm taking a lot of vitamin C right now, hopefully, so I don't go into anaphylactic shock next time I get stung by a hornet. But I did get an EpiPen, and it's $500 at my regular pharmacy, and it's 50% that price at telerx.com. So again, you get 20% off with promo code Allison.